and the co-founder and CMO of Busy Bee Promotions, Mr. Paul Edgewater. Welcome.
How you doing?
Yay.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Audience is going crazy right now. If you are new to Trusted Herd Live, I'll give you give a couple moments here before we get the interview started. If you're new here, tell you what's going on. We figured with the pause in the events industry, we would get to learn a little bit about the companies that we might not know anything about, but we see their names all over the place because we apply for the jobs and we want that money. But it's really nice to know the entrepreneurial story and how they came to be. So Bethany and Paul were nice of us to join us today. They're based out of Chicago. Also, it could be, we could all be in the same room right now. You don't know. We're different cameras. And we got, I'll remind you guys as we kind of go along, but we have an awesome giveaway today, courtesy of Busy Bee. All you have to do is smash that like button, the heart button, and the share button. Share it to your own page, share it to a group, and you can be entered. Bethany, what do we have today?
Well, it's fantastic. Mark, our Director of Operations, put this fantastic bag together. We have a bunch of Busy Bee branded goodies. Busy Bee is obviously a experiential face-to-face marketing company, but we also do all the branded attire. So we have the attire, we have a shopping bag. I know, Brian, you have one of them, so you like to use that. Branded pens. We have t-shirts, workout attire even, as well as this really cool cooler bag that also is a speaker bag. So you can actually put your phone in there, play music, bring some treats outside so we can all hopefully get out of our houses.
Especially with beaches reopening soon.
Exactly.
Sure. Not in Chicago, but sure.
Beach season somewhere. So if you are watching, go ahead and hit that like button or the heart button or the share button, and that'll enter you into win the prize pack. We'll remind you one or two more times along the show. So Bethany and Paul, our first question will have nothing to do with events. And we'll start with you, Bethany. When you are not doing events, when you are not doing Busy Bee, what can we find you doing? What are your hobbies? What do you like?
Well, actually, I am sitting in a room with what I do every single day. So I'm going to turn the camera around real quick. Well, two things. One, show the very cool view of Chicago. We have a fantastic view. And what do I get to do while I'm doing that? I get to do aerial yoga. So I have my aerial yoga hammocks here. Anybody that actually wants to see kind of the cool things I do with it, I do classes. And I also take classes myself, but you look at my Instagram, which is sky_fit_life, you'll see kind of the fun aerial yoga and stuff like that I do, which, yeah, that's kind of my thing. That and Ninja Warrior. So I do Ninja Warrior classes too.
That's amazing. For everyone who's just joining, we're here with Bethany and Paul from Busy Bee Promotions. I actually had the honor of going to Busy Bee Promotions I think it was what, two months ago now, before all this craziness happened, and I got to present Trusted Herd and meet all their team and go to that very, very cool place. It's on the west side of Chicago. That view that we see through the camera right now behind Bethany doesn't even do it justice. It is a very, very cool view of Chicago. And Paul, how about yourself? When you're not doing events, when you're not at the Hive, what are you up to?
Well, before I forget, you want to like the Hive on Hubbard on Facebook as well. Yeah,
thanks,
Paul. Great page. There's a lot of amazing events that take place there. So like the Hive on Hubbard. You won't regret it. It's a great place to have an event. When I'm not doing Busy Bee stuff, I do some nerdy things. I like writing. I also like working on my house and sometimes gardening and things like that. Motorcycle rides are probably my favorite way to spend my time. And when restaurants open up again, I like trying new restaurants. It's one of my favorite things to do. But I do a lot of writing. That's probably the hat I wear most often when I'm not doing Busy Bee stuff.
And if you don't plug it, I think one of the first times I talked to Paul at the end of the conversation was like, Brian, I want to send you something. I wrote a book. And he sent me this awesome book. Tell the people about the book that you got.
Well, I put together a quote book. A lot of people put together compilation quote books. I put together a book of my original quotes, as original as a thought can be. We're all inspired by things. But I've been following personal development for the last 35 years, and I have my own way of putting things that made sense to me. And I've been taking notes in different binders for years, and I decided I'm just going to put them in a book.
Yeah.
So you have one of those books.
Yeah.
And it's doing pretty well. It's on Amazon. So it's called You Would If You Could, or You Could If You Would. I always get it screwed up now. But it's on Amazon, and it's getting a lot of good reviews, and 50% of the proceeds benefit charity.
That's amazing. That's really, really great.
And edited it.
Yeah, Bethany edited it. Thank God.
Yeah.
with my writing.
Well, Paul's a fantastic thinker. We'll say that. Fantastic thinker.
Punctuation, not so much.
It's just a giant run-on sentence, the whole book.
Exactly.
So everyone, we're here with Bethany and Paul from Busy Bee. Bethany has a really cool giveaway, so much Busy Bee swag, and you can actually win that. All you got to do is like or heart this video or give it a share. That will enter you either way. Each one is worth one entry. So make sure you do that. Ton, what's going on? Angela, Barbara, Max, hello, hello. All right. So Bethany, if I didn't know anything about Busy Bee, and we just met maybe at the Hive, maybe I was there for a wedding and you just happened to be there. Tell me a little bit, like, how would you describe Busy Bee Promotions?
Well, normally we would have an elevator pitch that we've always had. But obviously we are all in a state of kind of pause, as you pointed out. So if we literally met today, my main thing would be to say we're brand builders. We make sure that our clients' products are in the forefront, whether it is digitally, whether it is virtually, whether it is with branded items, but we make sure that our clients' products are right in people's faces, to make sure that we actually can get the word out about them. So that's kind of the main thing we do, and we do that in any way we possibly can. We like the high touch face-to-face. We need to do the social distancing face-to-face. We can do that as well.
Yeah. Super.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Paul, if this was maybe 2 months ago, or maybe however long it's going to take for us to all get back out there, what would that pitch be like for Busy Bee?
Well, just go back to what it was before. Our primary focus has always been that face-to-face interaction. But the entire time we've been in business, we've offered those other services that Bethany was just touching on, with the social media, the branded merchandise. Brand building in general is more than just the event and execution. There's a lot of other things going with that. But when things go back to normal, our focus really will go back to being mostly that interaction with people, whether it's a trade show or a guerrilla team, street teams. In-store demos is a big part of our portfolio. We all want to get back to that as soon as possible. But in the meantime, we're leveraging all the other services that we've always offered.
Super, super. So let's shift gears a little bit and just kind of learn the overall pitch of Busy Bee. Paul, you started Busy Bee in 1998, is that right?
Well, yes and no. Here's how it really works. Busy Bee, as you know it today, is really all Bethany. Let me explain how that worked. I had an old company long time ago, and we'll touch on that later because one of your questions does talk about that. But I had a company called Busy Bee Music. I had fancied myself a performing musician, and I had a recording studio. I thought I would have a recording studio, and we'll talk about how the name Busy Bee came about. But when Bethany and I started working together, she liked the name, and really the company was her baby, and kind of had to be kicked, dragging, and screaming to join her. Because as much as I like to think I'm a left brain person now, I'm really a right brain person at heart, creative type. I'm good with structure. She is. And she brought me on board. It's her idea. Might be my name, Busy Bee, but Busy Bee Promotions, as you know it, is a Bethany creation.
So before getting into the event industry, Paul, were you then solely music? Was that your focus?
That was how I lost all my money. In the meantime, I had to do other things to pay the bills. And a lot of the work I did dovetailed into promotions. I did a lot of karaoke work, mobile DJ work, and I did some experiential stuff. Probably the highest profile thing I ever did was in the mid 90s. I was an official 20th Century Fox Tommy the White Ranger Power Ranger to promote the Power Ranger movie from, I think it was 95, at all the McDonald's in Greater Chicago. Had the actual Power Ranger suit and
leather sweaty suit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was an eye opener, but I did a little bit of that kind of stuff before running into Bethany, who had a much longer track history with promotions and events and things like that.
Yeah, that is amazing. And, you know, in a future episode, we're going to have to get Jade Edwards on here, who's the owner of A+ Staffing, because he was telling us he went through a music career and karaoke.
Oh, wow.
And that. We should get you two together to jam sometime.
Well, I wish I could still fit in that Power Rangers.
That's so great. And so, Bethany, how about yourself? Like, what were you doing before you got into the world of events? And were you the Red Power Ranger?
I was actually, so when Paul and I met and started working, or when Paul and I met and were working together, and while he was doing karaoke, I was doing events with the same company, so we met each other that way. But I was actually still in school. I was still in school at the time. It was when I was in college, and I have a boring story about it. I mean, Paul has the interesting one, which is why I kept telling him that and why I had to drag him kicking and screaming, because he'll also fail to mention that he was also a lotto ball. So he was a lotto ball that went around the state as well. And I'm like, look, you already do promotions. But mine is boring. Mine's like a bunch of other people that are probably here, which is, you know, for a lot of brand ambassadors, you were in college, you saw somebody giving stuff away, and you were like, I can give stuff away. I'll talk to people. I'll throw things out to people. And it started with the Mountain Dew tour. And that was, you know, but that was in college, what I was doing. And before that, I was a sales rep, but I was a sales rep through college as well. So basically, from the time I got done with college, we did Busy Bee.
Wow. So your first event was actually out at Dew Tour. Is that right?
Yep.
That's a very exciting
the Mountain Dew Hummers. Remember the Hummers that went around the city? We had the Mountain Dew Hummers.
Of course. Very, very cool. All right. So at that point, you guys then started working for the same company, and that's how you met, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And at what point did you both, I'll pitch this to you first, Paul. At what point did you go, you know what? I think I want to start a company with Bethany.
That's after she said we should start a company. Because I was absolutely still driven to be a successful musician. And I wore all kinds of hairstyles depending on the genre. I had the big 80s metal hair. I had, you know, freestyle dance hair. I did everything. I really thought that was going to be my thing. And I only did the promotion work and the karaoke work to pay bills because I had stars in my eyes. Yeah. So it really was Bethany saying, hey, you're doing this stuff anyway. I know how to run a business. Why don't you and I just start a business together? So Busy Bee really is her baby. I'd probably still be buying recording equipment right now and going broke.
Bethany, is that how you remember it going down?
I mean, yes, I will tell you, I did have to drag him, but part of it was, again, because I kind of had the forethought, and maybe it was because I was a college student, so it was like being, you know, young and in college and thinking, well, I see, while I'm doing these promotions for other companies, I see what's happening and what I don't think they're doing very well for their clients. I also don't think that they might be treating their brand ambassadors very well. And so my thought was, I want to do it better. And I know I can. And I know I had the experience by working for these entertainment companies that weren't exactly promotions, but we were doing things for a lot of companies that would want to hire a marketing and promotions company. And thought, you know, as I'm doing the entertainment, as I am doing the promotions for other firms, I'm thinking, yeah, you could be doing this better. We could be servicing these people better. And then just kind of really told Paul, look, I know how to do this. I understand it. I understand what's wrong, and I understand what I want to make right. And he was convinced finally.
Yeah, and again, to buttress what Bethany's saying, I was doing a lot of that work on the side, like side hustle gig work.
Yeah.
I did a lot of things that I didn't get paid for. So I know as a brand ambassador what it's like to work for an unscrupulous company. And that really angered me. And like it angers any brand ambassador to do work and not get paid or wait forever to get paid. And Bethany had this integrity that I really admired. So I thought, it might be a good way to make amends for the industry.
Yeah. And what year did Busy Bee as we know it today get founded?
So Paul and I started doing things while we were working with other companies, entertainment as well as like Paul was still doing karaoke in '98 while I was in college. But then in 2003, we finally incorporated and started doing it full time. So 2003 was probably really full time. Prior to that, we were mostly honestly, I'd say we were doing it full time, but we were also working with other companies. But 2003 is when we incorporated and stopped doing anything otherwise.
And that's amazing because 2020, we're at 17 years. Really, as the industry as a whole, a lot of the companies that we have on here are, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. You're kind of a little bit at the beginning of what would end up becoming a very popular trend with experiential. Let's see here. So we talked a little bit about like the purpose and the mission behind starting Busy Bee. Paul, since you had the name Busy Bee, where did that name come from?
Well, I've always liked bees, specifically bumblebees. I think they're ridiculously cute and funny. And I like the fact that, they're not supposed to be able to fly, but they've somehow figured out how to fly.
Yeah.
And they're just cool. And when I was doing my music, the first single I ever released, it was back in the day on cassettes, with the cassette single specifically. And I was in ASCAP and I wanted to get my record or cassette into stores and shrink wrap. And they told me, hey, man, you need to have a signed label. You need to have a music publishing company. You need all this stuff before we'll put your cassette in the store. I'm like, oh, I better make up some company names. And Busy Bee Music was my publishing company. And then they're like, well, it needs to say Busy Bee Music on the J card of your cassette. So one night I'm just drawing with a big pen on some lined notebook paper. And I'm like, I'll just draw a bee because I thought Busy Bee would be fun. And then I drew the bee that today, originally with a big pen on lined notebook paper. It's the exact same bee now, just converted into a vector file, but it's exactly how I drew it. 1993 is when that bee was born. And was just kind of buzzing around doing nothing until I met Bethany. She's like, I like that bee. We ought to use it.
So real quick on this bee, because that's amazing that we're looking at the same bee still. Mm-hmm. What version do you remember, like in your notebook? Was this like, oh, here's a bee, don't like this one, crumple it up, garbage can?
It was an inspired night. I remember exactly. It was at the corner of North Avenue in Kedvale. I was working at a recording studio overnights, and it was raining outside, bad thunderstorm. It was the first bee I drew. It's not to say I didn't use a lot of liquid paper to fix my mistakes. It was the only bee I drew that night.
Ah, that's so great. And so, Bethany, when you saw this bee and you're like, hey, I want to keep this name Busy Bee for promotions and the event world, was there something, I don't know, different that you saw in it, like an analogy of how it related to the event world? And if so, what was it?
Absolutely. Kind of as Paul said, when bees are really cute. But when he brought it up and said, because when he said, he just thinks bees are adorable and somehow they figured out how to fly. So I actually looked that up and I was like, not that I didn't believe him, but I always look things up because he has a lot of information that you would consider him a phone a friend. So I was like, let me look it up and see. And I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, they actually, like, bees can do the impossible. They do what they are not supposed to be able to do. That's also why we call our brand ambassadors bees, because we train them very well and expect that they are doing more than other people. They are doing better than other people. They're out there and they're the face of our clients. And so we can do those things and we will do those things that other people are not able to do. And, and it should amaze people. And that's what we want.
Yeah, that's so great. In fact, Max here, who's watching right now, he's like, I love working for Busy Bee. Lots of fun events and amazing communication with the team.
Hi, Max.
Appreciate that, Max. Thanks so much.
So if you're just joining us right now, we're here with Bethany and Paul, CEO and then co-founder and CMO of Busy Bee Promotions. Give that like button and heart button a hit. Give that share button a hit, because behind Bethany's left shoulder is an awesome Busy Bee prize pack that we'll come back in 2 days and we'll pick the winner. So if anyone's watching later on, make sure you share this to a page or a group, or like or heart it. So with that, can we remember back to 2003? Do you guys remember, Bethany, who the first client was and how that came to be?
100%. It was Starbucks. And
Wow.
I know that's kind of amazing. However,
Yeah.
I was lucky, and I will answer one of the Facebook users about being in college and my degree. I started off in education, realized that being a teacher is a lot harder than most people think, and even went through student teaching. But I ended up with an English education and then a psychology master's. And and that was business psychology. It was kind of what works in the world and so on. So what I can actually say, is in 2003, I had luckily some friends from college who started a PR firm, and they were working with the Midwest region of Starbucks, and they knew how dedicated I was with working. They knew that Paul and I had been working on this Busy Bee thing for a few years, doing it kind of on the side, and how much we worked with our clients, how well we worked with our clients, how well we worked with the staff, and that we would make them look good. So they were already working with Starbucks. They brought us in. Starbucks then loved us, and we started working nationally with Starbucks. We were lucky. They were our first major client in that 2003. Again, prior to that, we were doing here and there little things, but 2003, that's what we did. And we did it was called the Venti Van. We had a promotional vehicle that we built that was called the Venti Van, where we did samples. It was, different coffee samples and stuff through, around the country. So
that was one of the very first Sprinter van build-outs in the United States. They started importing Sprinters, I think, the year before that.
Yeah, and now we see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Paul, do you remember that meeting between Starbucks, like your first potential pitch to sell Busy Bee?
Well, yeah. Something else Bethany got into with the people that were at this PR company was the grand openings for the stores.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked us if we knew how to do inflatable signage, like you see those big gorillas that use car lots that are inflatable. And we've worked at this event company before with inflatable things, and we're like, sure, inflatable Starbucks cup, that's going to be the same thing as a bouncy castle. Right? But it wasn't exactly the same.
It wasn't exactly the same, but we figured it out.
Yeah, the thing is, most of the stores wanted them set up on their roof. And for a long time, I was the only installer. Bethany and I were the only installers. And I remember one time going to St. Louis, putting a Starbucks balloon on the roof. And it was a really tall store. My ladder wasn't quite tall enough. And it was at an angle that was very dangerous. And I'm climbing up the ladder with the Starbucks balloon. And I almost fell backwards. I'm like, Bethany, I think we need to start hiring professional installers. But, the grand openings were that, Bethany, I think you'll agree, that was when things really started taking off for us, because we did grand opening signage for every single Starbucks in the country for how many years?
That was probably for 4 years straight.
Yeah, every Starbucks that opened, we did their signage.
Yeah, but then that kind of turned into, as great as so many people start, honestly, at Starbucks, whether they're working in the stores or they start going into the marketing departments, and then they start working for other companies. Like Whole Foods. A lot of our clients went to Whole Foods, which is how we started doing in-store demos, because a lot of the Starbucks clients went there and they were like, can you guys do demos? And we're like, sure. We sample food to people all the time. It's the same concept, whether you're out on the street or you're in a store, as long as you follow the sanitation. And started doing it. So.
Wow. Okay. And so, all right. So Starbucks is a huge first. I mean, this is like almost dream client out of the gate.
Yeah.
Was there another client along the way where you started to go, hey, this thing is taking off? Or was that feeling kind of already there based on the volume that you were getting?
I don't know that it was necessarily already there with Starbucks. Like, we realized what a big company they were, of course, but again, in my mind, it was like, we were just lucky. And then realizing that even when that PR company was no longer working with Starbucks, and we still were, and Starbucks still at times calls us, but they just don't do as much street marketing and stuff anymore, to some extent, because they don't need to. But it really turned into, we thought, when Starbucks actually was stopping doing as much when it came to field marketing as they had been, because we would do a lot of events, not just the store openings, but we would do, it was called the Ultimate Coffee Break. We created it for them, and it was actually a street festival that we put together. And we would get clients, other clients, because we were doing these events, and other people would come and see it. But then it started to be, when they stopped doing as much field marketing, we were really afraid. We thought, and this was closer to 2008, and we were like, oh no. And I know that the economy was bad, but also they just weren't doing as much street field marketing at all. And so we were really concerned for about a year. But while that happened, as I said, all the people from Starbucks started working with other companies. And when they started saying, oh, we want to work with you, we're like, okay, so we're doing a good job. You actually really liked us there. Now you still really like us, and you want us to do more things. And that started to feel like, probably around 2009, 2010, we were like, wow, okay, you guys want to keep us. That's fantastic. Now we know we're doing a great job,
And it also kind of reinforced the notion that business is really relationships. And even though Starbucks was our client, the relationship was with the people who worked there. And we've had so many clients that we call portable, because they've gone from company to company and they keep using us because the relationship is still there. We treat our clients the way we treat our bees, with respect. And we really love the people we work for and the people who work for us. And I think that relationship keeps us really tightly bound to future opportunities, because people do move around.
I think I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you kind of put that bow on that, Paul. But the relationship thing when it comes to marketing, I think back to when I started at Marketing Works, and I think that was like 2006 maybe. And you came in with like your class of people, right? And you're all 22, 23. And now when I look at that class, you got people in all these different marketing agencies. You got some people on the brand side. And as time goes on, that's the value of relationship building, is that good people want to continue working with good people regardless where they're at. So that's no different than if you're running a company or you're an event worker. That's why relationships are so, so valuable.
That's why they say your network is your net worth.
Is that in the book?
No, it's not my quote.
It should be. It should be. All right. So this is the part of the episode that we've kind of recently started doing, and I think it's fun for people. I'm going to put some projects up on the screen, and I'll let you each kind of talk about different projects. So let's show this one first. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with this program that Busy Bee did?
We showed this picture because it represents that we do everything when it comes to like a big event. So everything from that truss work you see, the signage that's on it, designing it, printing it, production, the attire. There's only one bee in this picture, but there's also a venti van that's wrapped that was with this tour as well. It's a representation of how we do everything soup to nuts. So if you have a big street event, like what you're seeing there is very similar to what Bethany was talking about earlier with the Ultimate Coffee Break that we used to do for Starbucks. It was very much like this, where you enter one side, you exit the other side, and Busy Bee took care of everything in between.
Yeah, awesome. Good stuff. Great. Bethany, how about this one? What do we got going on here?
Yeah, so we do, a lot of the street promotions, and what's great is we have a lot of different tools to do guerrilla marketing. And so in this one particular, so Earthbound Farm, one of our longest and favorite clients as well, get them in almost any store in the world. I'm sure most people have heard of them. It's like greens and different types of vegetables and so on. But we have like the coolers. And so this was actually, I believe this was actually at Expo West one year. But this is some of our bees giving out some product. And, it's kind of one of the things that we do more than anything else is really, of course, giving that product out to the public, and finding ways to do it where we can do it guerrilla marketing, or we can do it as a real permissioned setup.
Yeah. And since Bethany gave Earthbound Farm some love there, I'll give some love to Kettle One, which I neglected to do before. A lot of people don't know.
Kettle One, not Kettle One.
Kettle One. That's where my mind is at, right? I've been in my house too, yeah, Kettle brand. They're the first kettle chip. You know, there's so many Johnny-come-latelys, but they invented the whole
Kettle was the first one. Yep.
Yeah, I do enjoy kettle chips. Paul, I also enjoy Kettle One.
I do too. I've been home so much lately. There's not much else.
Paul, what are we looking at on this one?
That is our Beyond Meat gazebo. Beyond Meat didn't want to just do in-store demos. When they were launching in store, you probably all remember this, they were very aggressive with the demos. We did all of the demos with the exception of a couple stores in the El Segundo area that they had their own staff doing. But they wanted a bigger presence in the store than just a table. So we designed this gazebo. If you look really closely to it, it also has coolers in it. So a lot of these gazebos, you'll see them at outdoor festivals, and it's just a table. Ours has the cooler display for customers to shop even when somebody's not at the booth. It's a display, kind of like impulse item near the cash registers. It was a really successful initiative. Bethany, I don't remember how many stores we had that in, but it was in several stores across the country.
Right, and we did this for 2 years at Whole Foods, mostly Whole Foods stores, but we also did it at some other stores around the country for Beyond Meat. And as Paul said, what's cool about it is we built the entire booth. We, of course, staffed all the booths and so on, and they were generally just in stores, but it was it was like a demo plus. It was like a plus size demo, because usually it was a number of people working at the same time, and we would keep it there for an entire weekend instead of just being a day. And sometimes we would actually keep it there for an entire week. And yeah, I mean, it obviously was a really big launch for them. And this was, I think, 2014 to 2015 we did. So
yeah, it was more of a cooking show than it was just sampling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I do want to touch on this, because when you get a brand ambassador that comes into an in-store demo to do something like this, there's actually a lot of elements to what's going on here. Yeah. In sourcing the gazebo, the print, the graphics, the materials. Like, I mean, I don't know if that is fully grasped when you go onto an event site, even something that's very simple. And I look at this picture and I go, oh, that must be so easy. But to do that on a national level, right? I mean, there's a lot of wheels that need to happen, right, Bethany?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I mean, that's what we always do with our clients in general, is that we like to ask them, as they ask for anything, whether it's demos, whether it's events, okay, what items do you already have? Please stop making things until we can talk with you. Because people often make things they shouldn't, or they make things that are going to be really hard for the brand ambassadors to do. And we are trying to figure out the best way to make sure it's not horribly hard for the brand ambassador to set up, but also going to give the most bang for the buck to the client, and that they're not going to just order things for no reason, or things that aren't going to work in a lot of different spaces. So it's a lot of logistical work, and we have a great logistics team that handles all of that too. So
yeah, let me just add at the bookends. Bethany was talking about our bees. Our bees are all really proficient at this kind of stuff. We make sure that we always have bees that like to do the extra mile. But at the beginning, to Bethany's point, if you're a company right now, a brand, and you're working with Busy Bee or any experiential agency, it's always a good idea to bring us in the planning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did we lose Paul?
Where'd you go, Paul? Paul, are you out there?
I think we lost Paul.
We lost him, but that's okay.
Yeah, that was the point. Yeah, that it is really, I mean, you want to bring us in during the planning stage, or anybody does. But we also, as I was saying, bring our bees in, our trusted bees, everybody that we've been around long enough, or that work with us long enough. We're like, hey, we're about to do this. What do you think? Because it's important that they have a say too.
I have a question on this particular gazebo, and looks like Paul has jumped back on. But Bethany, when you have wait for him to show up, when you have a gazebo like this, Bethany, Paul, welcome back.
Hi.
When you have a gazebo like this, is this like typically a kit that you would send to an event worker? And lost him again.
All right.
That's all right. Is this something that you would send to an event worker and they would do multiple demos with this one unit, or is this something that just goes to a single store and the store?
In this case, we sent them from store to store, and our team, we would have a brand ambassador, and they would either, in some cases it would go directly to the store, in some cases it was actually going to our local storage units or to our local bees, and then they would bring it in, but it would stay at that store, leave, and then go to maybe another one, unless we were doing a round of them in that area. For the most part, we tried to make it make sense so that we could actually use it one week at this store, the next week at another store that same team was doing. But in some cases, we were doing so many of these that we would have to, here's a week, you're going to have it, then you're going to pack it up, we're going to pick it up, we're going to bring it to the next location, either across the country or across to another state or in that state.
Excellent. All right.
Sorry about that connection. It keeps dropping out on me.
That's okay, Paul. I tell you, I miss sports so much. I actually watched video game NASCAR on Fox yesterday on my TV, and one of the drivers got in a wreck, and his 6-year-old daughter actually turned off the monitor, and he got eliminated from the race because she had reset everything.
Oh my!
Which is really funny. So, all right, let's see here, Paul. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in this picture right here.
Oh, those are the Illissimo cars. We did that for an Expo West initiative as well. It's an Italian beverage, being that it's Illy, and we wanted to use some Italian cars, so we used some Fiats. The year we did that, those were brand new, the Fiat 500s, and we designed the wraps for those. We wanted to really use most of the real estate on that rear quarter panel, so that can kind of goes up on the window. Gives it a little more of a rakish look. A little tip for anybody designing a wrap on a vehicle: ignore the windows on the sides and the back. You can go right over them. And we had a bunch of really good Busy Bee brand ambassadors dressing up in Italian suits and Italian dresses. And it was a really cool initiative. And those Fiats were zipping around the Anaheim Convention Center. It got a lot of attention. It was a really cool.
Yeah, Bethany, not this year, but for those who don't know what Expo West is, can you explain it?
Yeah, so anybody that hasn't been to Expo West or isn't aware of it, many of our clients, most of our food clients are there, but it's obviously the Natural Products Expo West, and they also have a Natural Products Expo East, which, fingers crossed, is still going to happen in September. Or October, whenever they're doing it. But it's the convention where all of the mostly food, but natural channels. Some of it's clothing, some of it's there's a lot of different things. There's toiletries, things like that are all natural, and they're trying to get into stores, and so it's a place for them to show their products to retailers, to distributors, to brokers and buyers, so on. And we often have our teams there as the support staff to their sales teams. So of course the client individually, for instance, Illissimo, had to have their sales team there, but we then have people promoting them so that then when the company are from let's say a retail grocery store like Kroger is coming by and they're going to come and see what products are out there, they'll think, I should go by the Illy booth because I just saw them going by. So
yeah, that's incredible. I've been to Expo West now. It is probably one of my top 2 or top 3 favorite trade shows, right up there with Outdoor Retailer, which is for the outdoor industry. But Expo West is like can't even really describe it. It's food booth after food booth after like every 10 feet, it's a new sample that you can have, which you have really big eyes at the end and or at the beginning, and at the end you go, why did I just try 300 different foods in a span of 6 hours?
The rule of thumb is don't eat breakfast, don't eat lunch, don't eat dinner. You're going to get all the food you need sampling.
Exactly. Get your samples and get sample belly, which is always what happens. But luckily, we have clients that we can help with that too. So we always, that's always a plus at shows like this.
We do the booth design for a lot of our clients too. We'll design the booth, the flow, That's one of Bethany's big strengths, is just seeing how people move through the booth. We can do the grunt work too, helping you set up and tear down, and staffing, of course, at the booth. So really everything that has to do with any trade show. Expo West is just one that we do a lot of because a lot of our clients are at that show.
Yeah. Bethany, how about this picture right here? That looks like somebody we might know.
It is. That would be Once Upon a Farm, which is one of our favorite clients. They're fantastic. You've probably seen them at Target and so on, but that's Jennifer Garner. She is actually one of their owners. She has been with them, I think, since the beginning, but I mean, she invested shortly thereafter. But yeah, it's an excellent natural product. It is actually so squeezy, if anybody's seen them, where it's the kids basically open them up, and sometimes, there's like the applesauce ones, but they do a bunch of different vegetables and fruits that go in those little squeezy pouches that you can open. But I think they're fantastic. It has nothing to do with it being a kid's thing. Like, it's fantastic for adults because it gets your vitamins for the day, and it's kind of like a smoothie in a little pouch. So, and that's
Jennifer Garner's a big fan of Busy Bee, as we are of her.
Yeah, she's honestly the nicest person. So I think if that's the thing too, is that she does not just look like she should have that smile. She really does. She's a sweet person.
She's not just celebrity nice, but really a bona fide nice person.
Yeah.
That's important. That is also the first time that I've ever left this chair during a Trusted Herd Live. Yeah. And I wanted to because in our fridge right now,
hey.
Yay!
There we go. So this one is Wild Rumpus Avocado. They have vegetable flavors. They have fruit flavors. Our daughter much prefers the fruit one, but it's amazing. I mean, you order them, they show up in this box that comes with all this prepackaged ice packs, so it's good for a couple days. It could sit in our lobby, but we have a stockpile in our fridge.
As you should. Honestly, those of you, I mean, they're okay with me saying it, but I think it's funny. But you can actually mix them with some mixed drinks too. Don't give them to your kids, but you can take them, squeeze them, and put some vodka with them, and they make really good.
Speaking of Kettle One,
I knew it was all going to come together there. I knew we were going to bring it back around.
Yeah, they're so tasty that as an adult, they're really tasty too. It's not like they're baby food. They're not baby food. They're kid food.
Right.
I once saw an event worker. It was in a group one time, probably last year or 2 years ago, and people were talking about snacks, right, and what to eat. And he goes, the baby food packets. I bring them to all my events. You get your nutrition. They're healthy. So there you go.
Yep.
All right. How about this? And I've actually met your team, and your team is wonderful. Paul, what does the Busy Bee team mean to you? Your internal team.
The internal team, the people you met?
Yes.
Boy, they are the example of leveraging people's strengths. Going back to Bethany and I, when we started the company, it was really just her and I. We did every event. We were there beginning to end, and working really, really hard. So we know from years of experience what it takes to do the events. And then one day we were just dead after the end of the event. I think it was in Atlanta. My goodness, we were tired. We drove all the way to Atlanta, set up all these folding chairs that had Starbucks logos on them, and then took them all, put them back in the truck, and we were like, we can't do this alone anymore. So we started looking for people that aligned with our values and that had the skill sets that we need. And everybody that you met, Brian, represents that. They all have strengths that we don't have, and they are all better at what they do than we would have been doing their job. So everybody in our team is a crucial and essential building block to Busy Bee. We couldn't do anything without them.
Yeah. One of my first engagements with Busy Bee was Jennifer Daniels, and I think we ended up talking on the phone for 40 minutes. I mean, great conversation, great person. Wonderful.
For years and years. So yeah, our team, that's the thing too, is we keep people forever, and we want them to stay with us as long as they can, whether they're the brand ambassador, again, our bees, what we call bees in the field, or if there are VIB staff in the office. We want them to stay with us, so we want to figure out, again, as Paul said, what their strengths are so that they can.
Yeah, because again, I'm really completely left-brained. As much as I want to be the right-brain business thinker, I think creatively, and creative people really are bad at follow-through. And if I didn't have people who knew how to make ideas come to life, I'd be lost. And Bethany is good at both things, but neither of us could do what we do on our own. Obviously, we've been growing a lot over the last few, many years up until the last couple months, but our team does what we can't do, and they are essential. And again, going back to relationships, we love these people. They're important to us. They're friends. They're not just people who work for Busy Bee. We're really close. We're all one big family.
So it's a good point that you just brought up, Paul, which is why the prize pack behind Bethany's left shoulder, she's in charge of it, and she will be the one sending it out.
To make sure it gets there.
Right.
I will be giving that to the head of my logistics department, Josh, because he makes sure everything gets there.
Yeah. I'd be like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go to FedEx.
Everybody watching, if you want to win that, just go ahead and hit that like button and that heart button and that share button. Share it to your group, share it to a page, or your own page, because Busy Bee will send that out to one lucky winner. We'll give you guys 2 days to enter so more people can watch. So get to like the last couple of questions here that we have. Paul, a question for you. Was there anything that Paul Edgewater today would tell Paul Edgewater back when he was the White Power Ranger in the 90s? Like anything that maybe would have accelerated that timeline for you, or anything different that would have helped you along the way?
Well, the first thing I would say to that Power Ranger, Paul, is don't put on 45 pounds. don't do that. The next thing I would say is that starting a business is going to be a lot more difficult than you think it's going to be. And it's also going to be a lot more rewarding than you think it's going to be. And the feeling of accomplishment that you get at the end of, say, the first 10 years, and then your next 10 years is just like, wow, this is really working. Then you see how many people you've affected too. That young Paul 20 years ago, 25 years ago, was just this dude who's just doing his thing. And, you know, if I didn't show up one day, only I suffered. And then when you're in a business and you have all these people and clients and people who work for you relying on you, it's a really good feeling. It's very rewarding. But the analogy I'd like to give is, you think when you start it, you're starting your business, it's going to be like, you know, maybe a game of golf. And, you know, you got your strategy, you got your goals, you got to get the ball there. But what they don't tell you is that in business, they put a football team on the golf course and they're going to tackle you. And they're going to push your face into the ground. And you're not going to know that's going to happen. It's going to blindside you. So just be prepared for anything, because it all happens. You'll never know, but it's so worth it. I would never say don't start a business. I would say do it and just never be surprised by what's going to hit you.
Yeah, you're on the golf course. Keep that head on a swivel.
Right.
Looking out for that team. Bethany, how about yourself? Do you feel, I mean, going through college and starting Busy Bee in 2003 officially, any habits along the way that you feel have done you well, that you possess?
Yeah, I would honestly say that it would really be an OCD level of responsiveness and availability to clients, to the brand ambassadors, to my team in general. I have had for years so many people from the beginning, and even while I was in college, still doing the part-time and stuff, people would be like, do you even sleep? Because it didn't matter what time they called me, I would answer, or they would send me an email in the middle of the night. Oh, I'm sorry, I emailed so late, I was just thinking about this, and then I would respond back. And I try to instill that also in the team in general. I want them to communicate with if a bee reaches out to them and needs something, I get it's the weekend, but hey, somebody needs to answer them, because I don't want them to be stuck thinking nobody's there for them. Same thing with clients. And I think that's the thing is, it might have been an OCD, and a lot of people are like, you know what, it's okay if you don't get back until Monday, but hey, you know what, if you can, do it. Get back to them, communicate with them, let them know, here's where I can tell you and when I'll tell you.
Yeah, I think that's great. How How about, Paul, one piece of advice you would give to event workers, whether they were your bees or not your bees, or future bees of Busy Bee?
Well, that's changed a little bit over the years because of things, technology changing. When we first started, nobody had mobile phones, so you didn't have to tell people, stay off your phone. Nowadays, you kind of have to do that. But the main thing is commit to your gig. If you take a gig and you've committed to it, do it. And even if something better comes around, and better being maybe more pay or more visibility, et cetera, you're going to get a lot more mileage out of being in the gig economy by committing to your obligations and the dates that you accept. Just always be that person that event companies can rely on. Like, that person always shows up. They always do a good job. They've never left us high and dry. If you are that person, you can't imagine how much work you're going to get. Because especially with folks like you now, with Trusted Herd, people know who's good, and people know who the rock stars are. So the main thing I would say is commit, and really take that word commit seriously. Don't change things around, because we're counting on you. The clients are counting on you. Everybody's counting on you. It all hinges on that brand ambassador doing their best job possible.
Yeah, that follow through. Bethany, I really like what I hear out of you. I really like what I hear out of Paul. When events come back, when there's more work for Busy Bee, I want to work with Busy Bee. How can I do that as a worker?
Well, honestly, as you know, and as everybody here should know now, I mean, really, through Trusted Herd, Jennifer, our head of HR, and her team uses Trusted Herd to see who's great and and she, posts the ads here, so on. So definitely there. But what I'll tell you is, once you actually get the call from Jennifer, which is for her team, don't be the person that says, how do I get on your list? That is not the way we do things. I get that there are companies that do, and that's fine, nothing against them, but we will interview each person, and we will make sure that each person knows what we expect, and we want them to be, as Paul said, they should be, kind of dedicated and have follow through. And if they are just saying, well, I want to be put on your list, all we think is, okay, so we're just one on another list, and we're potentially going to ask you to do more training than somebody else might ask you to do. But guess what? That's also going to give you more work, because our clients know that we do that, because a lot of times they're on those training calls. So if you can be that person that when you get that call back from us, or when you apply, you don't just say, I want to be put on your list. You say, I think I'm really good at this. I don't care if you have a ton of experience or not. If you do, great. You can tell us all about it when you talk to Jennifer or her team. But if you don't, that's okay too. Be honest about that and say, but I just think I'd be great at this, because I would love talking to people and telling, and I love being a foodie. I love information about food and stuff. I mean, be genuine and be who you are, and it'll really go a long way. It won't seem like you're either just rushing to get through and trying to get on people's lists, or that you're, or that you're trying to, or you're just really good at interviewing, which is not always a good thing either. I mean, it can be one or the other.
Can I just add real quick? Let's say you're working as a brand ambassador, say at a trade show, and you see one of us. We're talking about Busy Bee specifically, because we're very ostentatious at trade shows. We're all dolled up with our branded stuff. And you see us, but you're working at another booth. Don't ask us about working for us when you're on the clock with somebody else. Take a break, find us later. On your break, talk to us then. Because if we see that you're violating the trust of another brand there, they're paying you to do something, and you're talking about your next opportunity. I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to use you, because we don't want you doing that to our clients either. So if you're at a trade show and you see Busy Bee or another experiential agency, and you work with them, find them on your break time and talk to them then. Don't ever talk to somebody when you're on the clock.
Right. And I mean, we've had that. I agree with Paul. The thing is we've had people that I saw them doing a fantastic job, and I didn't know if they worked for the company or not. And that's great if you don't know if they actually work directly for that company. And then they'll reach out and say, well, I was working at this booth, but I didn't want to tell you I didn't work for them. And I'm like, yeah, you were fantastic. Thank you so much for not jumping on me and saying, here, can you call me, whatever.
Right.
You know?
And you know what? If we see somebody doing a really good job, we don't initiate a conversation at the booth. We'll just drop a card and say, give us a call, and we'll walk away.
Yeah.
It's a 3-second interaction there, but they know we saw that they did a good job, and they should reach out to us on their break.
I think what you just said is first time I've heard it on Trusted Herd Live. I know a lot of companies. I would guess to share 98% of companies feel that same way, that when you're on that clock, you're representing that brand, and that brand is paying you for that service. But when you do hear people like Paul and Bethany walking around, like, we've all done this so long, we know, great brand ambassador, look at that person on their phone right there. Like, we see that, right? And I do think that there's something to be said, especially, it can be anywhere, but large trade shows, especially like an Expo West, where you do have all these agency owners around, like, that's also your moment to shine. If you're on the clock, it's almost an audition for other companies walking around.
Perfectly put.
Yeah. Oh, good, because that's a Monday, so I'm glad I could at least get something out there. All right, let's see here. Want to touch on a couple of the audience questions. Busy Bee, 1099 or W-2?
We do both. It really depends on the amount of work that somebody works with us and for how long. We never, including our VIBs and office staff, don't start them as W-2. We start them as 1099 to do a trial period. But then there's a lot of brand ambassadors that work for a lot of different companies, and it works honestly better for them as well. They're not employees. But we've had brand ambassadors worked with us for so many years, or for just such a long time, and they're doing almost full-time work with us, that it makes sense if they choose to be W-2.
Yeah. How about this actually could be a general question. Purchasing out of pocket for product demonstrations. Is that a normal thing? Is that somewhere 50-50? Paul, what do you say about that?
Well, I'm sure Bethany will add to this. It depends on the client. Some clients say, if you're doing an in-store demo, will, as a part of the demo kit, offer vouchers. So a brand ambassador can just bring it up with a voucher. So there's no money out of pocket. Some clients, maybe smaller startup clients, haven't gotten to that point yet where they figured all this kind of stuff out, and you'll be making some purchases. But you just submit your receipt with your recap, and you're going to get reimbursed.
Right. And unlike a lot of, we do reimburse people every pay period, or every week, or every other week, depending on what it is. So if somebody has spent money, it's generally they're going to get paid each week regardless. And we prefer that they're doing direct deposit, so then they don't have to wait for a check. But obviously we will allow them to do check. But yes, we try to push our clients to either provide product that we can send, because we do have, as I said, a logistics team that handles putting all the demo kits together, or we try to get the vouchers and so on, rather than having somebody have to spend money out of pocket. But obviously there are, as Paul said, smaller companies, or just some companies that it's more difficult for them to do that in that way. And, we try to work through it with them and try to help them out. But in the meantime, that might have to be the case.
As service providers, Busy Bees in the middle, we got the brand ambassador here, and then the client. We're all serving that client. We have to make the whole process easy for the client first, because they're paying the bills. But we do try to steer them in that direction to do the voucher type of thing, because it makes it easier for everybody, frankly.
Right.
So we'd like that as the norm. But now, I don't know, Bethany, you would know the ratios. It really depends on the client. It could go either way.
Right. I mean, depending on the client at any time, it's usually no more than 50% of our clients that are doing that at any particular time, that are doing vouchers or not. But there are times where it's mostly. But what I would say is, when I say we pay regularly, I know there's a lot of companies that don't pay out until they get paid. We do not do that. So when somebody buys something and they submit all the appropriate paperwork with the receipt and the photos and their recap, we will reimburse them without being paid by the client, because we know that we want to give them their money as soon as they spend it.
That goes back to one of the inspirations behind Bethany and I starting the company, treating that brand ambassador with respect. They don't care that Busy Bee didn't get paid. They had to pay for something, and they shouldn't have to wait for us to get paid to get reimbursed. So as a policy, Busy Bee always pays our brand ambassadors well before we get paid, because we're some of our clients, we're on net 60.
Yeah.
And the bees get paid on the very next pay period, no matter what.
Got those paychecks flying into those bank accounts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I saved all my bee analogies for just one. Let's see here. I think that might have answered all the questions. If anyone has a last second question, go ahead and fire it into those comments. We're here. We've been so fortunate to be joined by Bethany Scherbarth and Paul Edgewater of Busy Bee Promotions. Bethany, if you had any parting words of wisdom for people watching now, tomorrow, in a week, what would it be?
Right now, I would really just say, stay positive with everything you're doing. I mean, this is a very different time, and we at Busy Bee are coming up with ways for the brand ambassadors to continue work, whether it's social distancing related or not, so that people don't think, it's either going to turn back on, as everybody I'm sure sees Dr. Fauci every day saying, don't just turn it right back on. So it may not, but we are thinking constantly about the bees, our brand ambassadors out there. Since, you're bread and butter of what a lot of what we do already, and we want to make sure we're coming up with some new creative, innovative ways. And if you have those new creative, innovative ways to promote somebody's product and you want to share them with us, great. I mean, I think that's the thing right now is all be positive and try to be innovative. Think about new ways to do things, and you might find some more work, not only with us, but potentially with other companies as well.
Yeah. Paul, how about yourself? What do you say to all the lovely people out there watching us right now?
Well, Bethany really said what needed to be said about the situation we're in, and that we are going to be out of this at some point. I think when that valve turns on, it will be gradual, but there will be a point when the floodgates open. There's going to be a lot of work out there. And I just want to say thanks to you, Brian, for starting Trusted Herd. I mean, what a great idea. It's amazing. It's one of those ideas that you think, why didn't everybody think about this? Why didn't I think about this? You're doing a really great service for the industry, and hats off to you. What an amazing concept you've had.
Jennifer Daniels, who does all the recruiting for Busy Bee, probably a compliment that I will never personally forget was she said how the Boston market can be a little challenging, and I think it's challenging for a lot of agencies out there. And I think she said Busy Bee had found like 6 to 8 workers, new workers, just off Trusted Herd in the Boston area. So that was really rewarding to hear. And we just trying to bring good people together, right? Whether they're agencies or workers, and award them more opportunities. So thank you very much. That was very kind.
Thank you. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a final question that I did not type in, but it's up here. Bethany, how do you feel that the food demo business will change a little bit because of the situation that we're in? Do you have any ideas of what we might see?
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more prepackaged samples, and we've been just so for those brand ambassadors out there that are thinking, how am I going to actually give a physical sample to somebody? We've been actually pushing since March to our clients, hey, can you do a sample, a prepackaged sample, a smaller sample size, but a sample so that we can actually give it out prepackaged, because that will still exist. And hey, guess what? To some extent, that might be easier for some products.
Yeah.
But it'll also be more of more information. I mean, we have great Good Catch is a vegan tuna company. They're fantastic, and we've been working with them recently about doing more of a couponing and potentially small packet of product that we can all kind of put together. We will seal ahead of time, send out to the bees, the brand ambassadors, and they'll be able to give it out as a social distancing demo. It'll be a more sanitary and less preparing food on site. But I know that those will be back as well. Those type will be back as well. It'll just be probably fewer, but there's still a need to get the product out there, even if we're not making a prepared one. If it's a prepackaged, that's what it's going to be.
This is my marketing mind working, but I don't know if it goes within the brand guidelines, but we should dress them up like a fisherman and have a fishing pole that comes out.
That's fantastic.
And the sample is at the end of it.
Well, that's fantastic.
You just made my mind go in another direction. We could do a lot of tailgate parties where we could just throw the samples.
Just throw a sample and like a football.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist, though. I think later in the year, and no later than next year, things are going to get really close to normal again. I don't think this is a permanent fixture in the human experience.
Yeah. But not so the brand ambassadors don't have to wait that entire year. At least there are options, and that companies like us are thinking of them. But that's why, anybody that has those ideas, we're happy to take them as well and give them to our clients and say, hey, this product, why don't you do samples like this? Or this product, why don't we do this?
Yeah, no, I think any of those ideas are good ideas right now, right? And certainly the creative ones can rise to the top. So again, Bethany Scherbarth, CEO of Busy Bee, Paul Edgewater, co-founder and CMO of Busy Bee. For everyone, this is your Monday episode, but we have a great slate the rest of the week. Tomorrow, Sarah with Eris Promotions. We have Recess on Wednesday with Jack Shannon, Lucy Williams with JBC Reach Thursday, and then Jordan with Grassroots or Guerrilla Roots Marketing on Friday. And we have officially booked all of next week for Trusted Heard Live. So going to go into the following week, and these have just been a lot of fun. So I'm very thankful for Bethany and Paul to spend their Monday afternoon and early evening with us, and I hope you all have enjoyed it, and we will see you all later.
Thank you. Have a great one.